Hi all, I have another fascinating game of Paul Morphy to show you. His opponent here was Theodore Lichtenhein. Just briefly some bio from Wiki. Lichtenhein was an American chess master born in Königsberg, originally in East Prussia. He learned chess at the age of 12, and 6 years after he was president of the Königsberg Chess Club. He studied at first for a medical profession, and afterwards he entered the service of the Prussian army. He moved to the US in November 1851, and basically in 1856 he joined the New York Chess Club and soon became its strongest member. In the first American Chess Congress held in New York, which was won by Paul Morphy, that was in 1857, the year of this game. This was actually one of the games from that tournament. He took third prize. He won against Charles Henry Stanley in the first round. He beat Frederick Perrin in the second round. So this is the third round, and I'll keep the suspense here. So third round, let's see. He had a few games against Paul Morphy. E4, E5. We have knight F3, knight C6. Paul Morphy playing black. Bishop C4, knight F6, D4. This is actually quite a popular move here in the live book, to play D4. E takes, E5, D5. Many games have trodden along this path. Knight E4, knight takes D4. Very theoretical position, but here, usually, without exception, 624 games in the live book, with bishop takes, doubling the pawns, leaving the knight on D4. And only 3 with knight takes C6, and this game is one of representing knight takes C6. So what's so bad about this compared to bishop takes C6, just from a theoretical perspective? Let me just show you. Usually bishop takes C6 games run along this sort of line, where the knight's kicked with tempo there, bishop E3, and white's doing fine in this sort of position. For example, although black has the bishop pair, pawns are doubled here. It's quite comfortable for white. White's got a slight edge maybe. But okay, in this game, knight takes C6. So can Morphy exploit this nowadays unusual move? B takes, and now after bishop D3, bishop C5. Bishop takes E4 is played. Already, it's a little bit on the uncomfortable side, actually. If we look at this position, if white just routinely castles, the direct queen h4 is not without venom, threatening bishop f2. And if g3, I think we can just take this. This position is unpleasant for white, to say the least, if not absolutely losing. The check here, this could actually be totally losing. Resource rook b8 to potentially swing the rook in is very dangerous. Like this, for example, we'll be mating. But if white parried that, black's gained a free tempo there on the queen side. So say b3 to be able to play c4. This is still interesting, this position for black. It's very dangerous, basically, a very dangerous position. So it seems, if white castles, queen h4 is dangerous. g3 is a suboptimal move, but say queen e2, I think black's doing wonderfully here. So okay, it was actually snapped off, that knight. That's the game, snapping that knight off. But we do have, instead of an ordinary recapture, we have queen h4 hitting f2, threatening mate in 1. And the classic g3, of course, is to be avoided. Queen takes e4, hits the rook. So we have queen e2, d takes e4, and black now threatens bishop g4. It's unpleasant here. Again, if white castles, I believe this is pretty unpleasant if white routinely castles. Bishop e3 was played, but let's see white castling as well now in this line. If white castles, maybe that is one of the better moves actually. There's nothing particularly lethal about castling here. If bishop g4, I think white can play queen takes e4 or even queen c4. So no, that's not particularly castling. Perhaps is one of the better moves, in fact. But we have here bishop e3. And so leaving the king in the centre, there can be certain dangers, and they're highlighted here by Paul Morphy, in fact. So because white didn't castle now, we have bishop g4. And this looks as though this is a bit silly, because hold on, the black king's still in the centre. Isn't there potential for carnage here? We have queen c4. Black now plays bishop takes e3 though, and there's a clever point to this, a very clever point to bishop takes e3, which maybe white had overlooked. First of all, what's going on here? Can white just play queen takes c6? White played g3 in this position. Now queen takes c6 is worth checking as well though. Bishop d7, and if white snaps off that rook, hitting the queen, if this is taken, then check and mate here. Yeah, so queen takes c6 is not advisable. Bishop d7 is good there, for example. So we have g3, but now this is the point which may have been overlooked. With the king still in the centre, these things happen. Black to play. Can you see what Paul Morphy plays? Really strong move. Queen drops all the way back, just looking at d1, threatening queen d1 checkmate. We have f takes e3, check. And now it might be tempting to take the rook, but remember c6 is hanging here. Is that so clear to take the rook? I believe Paul Morphy might have played a stronger route here, a much stronger route, much more clinical. Taking the rook is actually okay, even if this happens. Even if this happens, this is good for black. This is also winning for black actually. This line. But in the game, even stronger clinically, just check actually. Now if the king goes here, then it's mating after check and it's checkmate. So the king goes to g1, but now bishop h3 seals the king's fate. Well, f1's covered, but g2 isn't. White tokenly takes on c6. We have king f8, gaining a very, very critical tempo now after check with taking the rook. King e7, hitting the queen. There's no more checks, and white's threatened with two mates here. Can't address both, not with that queen there on a8, which is also attacked. So this is the final position. In fact, white resigned here. From a theoretical perspective, it's actually quite interesting for the theoretical perspective how you see that now. This is a very clear example of what can happen on knight takes. But nowadays, yeah, bishop takes c6 in live book. There's over 600 games with bishop takes c6. It's thought to be about okay, about equal with bishop takes c6 here. So there's some evolution of opening theory going on here. This is a key example game, knight takes c6. What to sort of do against that. Very interesting historical game, this one. Hope you enjoyed it, got something out of it. Comments, questions, likes, shares appreciated. Thanks very much.